Today on Cityline, she's taking on some of the toughest issues of our time. Next, a conversation with Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. Good afternoon, I'm Karen Holmes Ward and welcome to Cityline. This afternoon we're talking with Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts' 7th Congressional District. From calling for protections for the sacred right to vote to the push to cancel nearly $2 trillion in student loan debt and honoring Willie O'Ree, the NHL player who broke the color barrier, for Pressley, all of these issues are tied to the quest for racial justice. Welcome, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. How are you today?
Good morning. Wonderful. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. This week you tweeted, canceling student debt is racial justice. Abolishing the filibuster is racial justice. Expanding and protecting voting rights is racial justice. Paid leave is racial justice. If we can legislate hurt and harm, then we can legislate justice and healing, and our communities can't wait. So let's begin with voting rights. President Biden admitted in his press conference this past week that he had more hope for getting election reforms through the Senate. Has he done enough?
Well, last night's vote, although expected, is infuriating and a damning commentary on the state of our union. The fact that 52 senators chose to preserve the Jim Crow filibuster over preserving democracy. And so we certainly have our work cut out for us in that 19 states have passed voter suppression laws, 49 states have introduced voter suppression laws, and the movement and the organizers have already done so much. And to expect them to out-organize voter suppression is daunting and unfair, but we will do everything that we can to keep this fight up, to strengthen and expand access to the ballot, because if we do not do that, millions of voices stand to be disenfranchised, disproportionately so Black, Brown, the disabled, the elderly, the multi-generational and multiracial coalition of the most marginalized, which made this Democratic majority possible.
Now, Congresswoman Pressley, voting rights is stalled by members of your own party. And as you've said, the House did its part. Now it's up to the Senate to take the next step.
Well, that's right. And the House, we have been leading throughout this unprecedented time, because this unprecedented time on the heels of an insurrection, in the midst of a global pandemic, a pandemic-induced recession, all against the national backdrop of a reckoning on racial injustice. This Democratic majority-led House has passed bipartisan legislation in comprehensive COVID relief packages, which were moved out of the Senate, including things like the child tax credit, which will cut child poverty in half. And we have also advanced 2 voting rights pieces of legislation, the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. And the House has done its part. And the Senate continues to bottleneck and to suspend action. And as long as there is a fight to preserve things like the Jim Crow filibuster, which King spoke about as an obstructor to progress and justice, we will not see gun reform. We will not see immigration reform. We will not see climate justice.
But Congresswoman Pressley, what can be done to break the logjam? There seems to be just an insurmountable logjam. How do we get through it so that this election reform is passed?
Well, we need to do, heading into the midterms, what I hope people will be thinking about is what we're going to do to expand our Democratic majority in the Senate. For as long as we have these very slim majorities, And there's only so much that can be done by executive action, although I am calling on the president to use the power of executive action to cancel student debt at $50,000, which is within his authority to do. For as long as we have these slim majorities, progress and justice, it seems, will stand in the balance. Everything from the Build Back Better Act to passing the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. I mean, the fact that it's 2022 and we have yet to pass a federal legislation, an anti-lynching act. Many people have been enjoying the Women of the Movement docuseries featuring Mamie Till,
which is right here on Channel 5.
Mm-hmm. and her courage. Mm-hmm. And the fact that in 2022 we have yet to pass the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, which is one of the most draconian and unjust examples of what the filibuster does. And again, that's why we call it the Jim Crow filibuster, because it has been used time and time again to preserve racial injustice. And I think ultimately here the point is bipartisanship at this point has become an empty talking point. The goal at this time must be justice. And we must do everything that we can to see that manifest, especially at a time of unprecedented hardship for everyone who calls this country home. We have to lead with unprecedented leadership. We must legislate in ways that are unprecedented as well. So the goal here must be justice.
You've in fact said, you mentioned Jim Crow, you've said that we are still in the middle of a civil rights movement. Can you talk to us more about what you mean by that?
Well, you know, there are some that would try to have us believe that John Lewis crossed a bridge, Rosa sat, Dr. King marched, and suddenly full rights and the emancipation of Black Americans was realized. And of course, that is not true. Black home ownership is the lowest that it's been in decades. We have a student debt crisis at $2 trillion, disproportionately borne by Black student borrowers, a pandemic which has hit the Black community has been one of the hardest hit because of decades of underinvestment and divestment, resulting in systemic racism that has left the community more predisposed to have higher rates of infection, hospitalization, and death rate. We have a Black maternal morbidity crisis. I'm a co-founder of the Black Maternal Caucus under the Congressional Black Caucus. The fact that in 2022, Black women are still 4 times more likely to die in childbirth or in postpartum complications. My grandmother died in the 1950s, giving birth to my uncle. And the fact that in 2022 that this still persists. So those are just some of the examples. In the Massachusetts 7th alone, in a 3-mile radius from Cambridge to Roxbury, the Blackest part of my district, life expectancy drops by 30 years and median household income by $50,000. Mm-hmm. And so I know folks have grown tired of these sobering statistics. The fact that African Americans represent just 13% of the US population, but more than 40% of those who are incarcerated. So people may be tired of these sobering statistics, but we should be much more tired about actually living them.
Let me ask you about a piece of legislation that has gone through. The bipartisan infrastructure bill passed because progressives were promised the social safety net piece would be voted on and passed at the same time, which would address some of the issues you just talked about. You voted against infrastructure because the bills were not presented at the same time. Do you feel betrayed that the social spending and climate portion of the Build Back Better legislation is now stalled?
Well, to be clear, I fought very hard for that infrastructure package to be as strong as possible because those investments are important. And I think it was critical that at the same time, as we are fighting to make investments in our highways, roads, and bridges, that we make the same investments in housing, which is the most critical piece of infrastructure. And the Build Back Better Act, and in my role on the Financial Services Committee under the leadership of Chairwoman Waters, we fought for unprecedented investments in housing. universal child care, pre-K, a living wage for child care workers who are overwhelmingly women and women of color. Also fighting for the needs of home and community-based services for the disabled and the elderly, and also that workforce, which is overwhelmingly women and women of color. Paid leave. How could we even have to make the case for paid leave in the midst of this global pandemic? At some point, everyone will need to care for someone or need to be cared for. And so what I rejected was the decoupling of those bills because it had already been made clear by Senator Sinema and Manchin, respectively, who were never negotiating in good faith, that what they cared the most about was the bipartisan infrastructure package. And so by decoupling that from the president's agenda, which is the people's agenda, and these unprecedented and necessary investments in not just physical infrastructure, but human and social infrastructure. Yes, both with the vote yesterday against the preservation of democracy and voting rights, and also with the role that they played as obstructionists of President Biden's agenda and the people's agenda, it is infuriating. So, you know, and we must never lose sight of the fact that those unprecedented investments are wildly popular because they are sorely and greatly needed. And I think it is important that we are legislating in a way that goes as broad and as deep as the hurt that people are experiencing. And Karen, as we head into the midterms, this is especially important because what will motivate people to go to the polls is when they see and feel the impact of what this Democratic majority and this administration, having the House, the Senate, and the White House, is doing on their behalf. And we have done some extraordinary things with comprehensive relief packages in the midst of this pandemic.
But like there's so much more to be done. I know
yes,
there's so much more to be
tax
done.
Credit, you know, all of those things. But we have to deliver, and they have to feel the impact. And so I'm not going to cede defeat, and we'll keep fighting.
Congresswoman Pressley, we're going to transition here just slightly. Willie O'Ree made history with the Boston Bruins this past week by becoming the first black player to play in the National Hockey League. Congresswoman, we know you've spent years looking for recognition for the hockey legend. Now O'Ree's historic career is being commemorated.
To have my number retired and hanging up there in the rafters with so many other great hockey players that have played for the Bruins, it's just amazing, and I'm just thrilled and overwhelmed.
And another tribute, the Congressional Gold Medal, Presley's efforts to honor a trailblazer, icebreaker, and activist. When we come back.